Okay, great. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, my name is Max Broad from DC Veg Week. You all are here because you care about sustainability and you want to make your green options on your menus economically sustainable. That's the purpose of this presentation. Restaurants are really a dance partner for the general public to become familiar and excited about good food. We're here to support you in those sustainable offerings. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Again, my name is Max Broad. I'm from DC Veg Week, an organization I've founded and I've been running for over 3 years. And I've been in the climate movement for over a decade. I have a master's in environmental science and management and previously worked as a renewable energy consultant in the Department of Energy and for the nonprofit National Wildlife Federation. Now my responsibilities involve shifting sustainable food systems particularly in the DC area. And so, this role includes placements such as being the co-chair of the DC Good Food Purchasing Program Coalition and other roles like DC Veg Week. We're going to talk a little bit about what DC Veg Week does later on. And I'm excited to share kind of our celebration-centered approach to a more sustainable world, and especially as we're thinking about sustainable food systems. But let's go ahead and jump into what we're trying to do in this presentation. And we'll start off with something that restaurant owners are no doubt familiar with, and that is the customer review, a big part of where you get your feedback from. And sure enough, most people, when they get reviews, some may pop up that are not so good. And so these are some of the reviews that we're trying to avoid. And we'll go into how restaurants can learn from best practices from groups like Clara's on how to improve the presentation and relationship with customers so that they're really excited about, especially the sustainable items on your menus. And we want to, create a setting where you have ingredients to a winning experience for your customers and a winning experience for you. So that's what we're out to do today. We'll share a little bit about it, and I just want to give the context for what is going on and what consumers are thinking around sustainability in menus. So we saw a boom in plant-based sales over the pandemic, and people are thinking much more about this for a variety of reasons. They're thinking about plant-based for health, thinking about increasingly about sustainability and climate change, and recognizing that plant-based is one of the best tools to reduce our carbon footprint, and just generally thinking about plant-based as a way to mitigate our impact on the planet and on the food systems. So, we've seen that 29% of shoppers are moderating their meat intake. People are just increasingly looking for more diverse menu items and not the traditional, meat at the center of the plate. And that's really the focus. So people are branching out more. People are being more willing to experiment and get familiar with vegan, plant-based selections, including people who are not themselves vegan, right? This is a general kind of flexitarian crowd. It's the term that we're using. And, there's real incentives for this. We can talk about the green premium, right? People are interested in buying environmentally healthy and responsible food. And, it's a way to create a relationship with that customer and show that you're offering premium or high value food because of the sustainability of it. Some people are willing to pay more for healthy and environmentally responsible food if they have those values. It's also an opportunity to cultivate loyalty. People have strong loyalty trends within the plant-forward segment. And so if they know that you're an establishment that does serve great plant-forward options, people will stick to you and become familiar with you and hold you in high regard. So, that's really strong. That's a strong case for why people will join or strong case for plant-based selections on the menu. And lastly, there is just, the world has changed so much over the past 5-10 years in terms of plant-based foods. Now there's plant-based meats, cheeses, milks, yogurts, eggs, pretty much anything, you name it. and you can get ones. And my advice, as somebody who is plant-based myself, is to just have fun with it. Experiment with the different selections. They're so fun. There's a variety of options, from very similar to meats to very unprocessed versions. And you can explore and find the selections that make you intrigued, and have you get to go to the grocery store and just buy all the vegan yogurts in the aisle, or buy a bunch of vegan cheeses in the display case, and have fun with it. Get out there and experiment. And it doesn't have to be plant-based alternatives too. It can be foods that derive from cultures of the world that have a long, rich history of plant-based foods. Everywhere from South America to Africa to Asia, there are just extremely rich culinary traditions that celebrate plant-based. So, that's a little bit about the case for what we're talking about today. And I'm really excited that Clara is here to join us and talk about her work. Clara Cho is the data analyst at Coolfood at World Resources Institute. Fun fact, I used to work there. That's where I got my start as an intern in DC many years ago. Clara leads the data analysis for Coolfood Pledge and Coolfood Meals, where she measures and tracks progress for members towards their Coolfood Pledge emissions reduction commitments. Clara holds a Master's of Science in Agriculture, Food, and Environment from the Friedman School for Nutrition Science and Policy at Tufts University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Hamilton College. And Clara, as I turn it over to you, my understanding is that DC is involved in the Coolfood Pledge as part of our Glasgow commitment, Glasgow Declaration commitment. Does that sound right to you?
That is correct. Yeah, DC as a city has signed on to the Coolfood Pledge. So they have committed to reduce their food-related emissions in line with our target, which I'll talk about a little bit more now, actually. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you all see that? So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about Coolfood, which is an initiative of the World Resources Institute. I'll share a little bit more about WRI, a little bit about the climate impact of food, a little more on our Coolfood Pledge and Coolfood Meals initiatives, and then finally finish up with some behavioral nudges and design principles before handing it back to Max to dive a little more deeply into the behavior change aspect of things. So kicking off, World Resources Institute, we're a global research organization focused primarily on environmental issues across our 5 programs. Our Coolfood work falls within the Food, Land, and Water program, and we're an initiative of World Resources Institute that is focused on our work on the consumption and promotion of sustainable diets. I am based in DC. Our office is right next to Union Station for some additional context, but we do have colleagues around the world. So for example, half of my team is based in London, and we work primarily in Coolfood across North America and Europe, since those are the main high consuming regions in the world. So our goal across World Resources Institute and within Coolfood is to provide companies and organizations and nonprofits with a variety of tools to kind of measure and manage different value chain risks and impacts. So these are some of the tools that we have, including our Coolfood tool. We also have a food loss and waste protocol, also relating to food, which could be valuable for restaurants. But with Coolfood, we're again focused primarily on the consumption and promotion of sustainable diets. And so diving a little bit more into the context, the climate impact of food, why we should care about food. We know that food accounts for just over a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's, food is up there when it comes to things like oil and gas, aviation, driving your car, et cetera. So food does have a pretty significant impact. And so recognizing that, we put out a big report a couple of years ago now, looking at how we needed to reduce food-related emissions to hit global climate targets, so to hold the world to 1.5 or 2 degrees of warming in line with the Paris Agreement. And we found that shifting diets, highlighted up here in red, was one of the areas with the biggest potential for emissions reduction and change. So, there are a whole host of other options and other things that we do need to be doing, including, improving agricultural productivity, increasing the fish supply, and protecting and restoring our natural ecosystems. But reducing growth and demand for food and specifically shifting diets is one of the most impactful steps that somebody could take to, reduce their own food-related climate impact, and also to help shift the world as a whole towards those targets that we need to be hitting. And so now moving on more specifically to our targets. So our Cool Food Pledge is an initiative where organizations sign on and commit to a reduction target. So for example, DC has signed on. And so with Cool Food Pledge, the collective target is a 25% reduction in your food-related emissions by 2030. So DC has signed on to this commitment. They'll be working to shift their food offerings that are offered throughout the different departments in the district, for example. But we also have other organizations such as restaurants. We have contract caterers like Aramark, and we also have a variety of universities and other corporate members. And another city example would be the city of New York has also signed on to the Cool Food Pledge. And so knowing that different foods have different impacts, the most impactful way for organizations to achieve these reduction commitments is to shift that diet away from the most impactful foods, which are shown down there at the bottom in these charts. Those are items like beef and lamb, they're ruminant meats. So they emit methane in addition to requiring a lot of resources and producing a lot of emissions as they grow. And then those other animal-based products are also higher in GHG emissions, especially when compared to plant-based proteins, those vegan items like corn, rice, tofu, peas, nuts, and pulses, etc. So the most impactful shift does come from, shifting away from an animal-based diet towards a plant-based diet, or to become entirely vegan, are kind of the most effective ways to reduce your food-related emissions. And so moving on from our Cool Food Pledge initiative, we also offer a Cool Food Meals initiative, which looks at low carbon meals and what it might take for a restaurant or someone to offer those. So within our Cool Food Meals program, we've established a maximum recommended daily carbon footprint for somebody's diet in line with 2030 climate goals. So in the United States, that allowance is 19 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per day. And we then allocate that across 3 meals. And if any of we then analyze meals, and if those meals fall below that footprint, they can then receive our badge, the low carbon certified badge. I will note, as an aside, that generally any vegan item would pass as a Cool Food meal since they have that low carbon footprint. They would fall under that carbon threshold and could be certified as a Cool Food meal, helping, consumers identify how they could eat in line with 2030 climate goals and how they can eat to reduce their own personal carbon footprint. So next up, kind of shifting away from Cool Food Pledge and Cool Food Meals, which we do offer through Cool Food. I also want to highlight some of the other things that we offer, which is our behavior change side of things, and how to get consumers interested in eating those low carbon meals and shifting their diet away from more GHG intensive foods to those plant-based options, which, as we know, have the lowest climate impact. So in 2019, we put out our first playbook for guiding diners towards plant-rich dishes in food service. This playbook has been downloaded over 7,000 times since publication, and it's helped inform behavior change plans for 65 plus organizations. It's been one of our most valuable resources, especially for people who have committed to the Cool Food Pledge, or for restaurants that are interested in kind of shifting and encouraging diners to choose those plant-rich dishes on their menu, which sometimes may not be as popular. So the intent of this playbook is to kind of provide different behavioral nudges. So it has products, across 5 different sections. It has people interventions, product interventions, promotion interventions, placement, and then presentation. So across these 5 sectors, it looked at different interventions that a restaurant or environment could take to kind of nudge people towards choosing those plant-rich dishes. And when mapping them out, they saw that there were, of those 57 ranked interventions, there were 23 that ranked the highest in terms of both feasibility, how easy would it be for a restaurant to do this in their own setting, and also their impact, how impactful would it be if the restaurant were to actually do this, would they see a significant impact? And so they found, just under 50% of these interventions were both feasible and impactful when ranked by industry folks. So taking kind of a deeper dive, they introduced these as kind of the best bet interventions across all 5 categories. This includes a variety of things like for presentation, making sure you have really great language on your menus to recommend those plant-rich dishes. In terms of placement, increasing the amount of, say, a self-service display that is dedicated to plant-rich. And in terms of, a product example would be improving the flavor and texture of your plant-rich dishes, making sure those plant-rich dishes do really have the same taste, the same flavor as a dish that may include meat or, are even better than those meat dishes, as a way to really encourage consumers to choose the plant-rich option and to make it more appealing for everybody, even if they're not, someone following a plant-based or vegan diet, for example. So some of the main fundamentals is that, in order to get a lot of uptake on your plant-based dishes, you need to increase that relative number of plant-rich dishes on offer in your menu compared to meat dishes. They found, the ideal ratio is almost a 50-50 split between plant-based dishes and meat-based dishes, increasing the variety of dishes on offer, for example, and then also, making sure that these dishes are really good and that consumers will want to eat them and will want to come back for more. Those are just some of kind of the fundamentals and the key takeaways from our behavior change playbook, which is available for free download on our website. And then I'm also happy to share that we are coming out with an updated version of this playbook in just a few more weeks. It should be out in early to mid-May. And this will be adding a 6th kind of promotion technique, adding in price, since there have been, a lot of research now in behavioral science looking at how different price nudges can encourage people to eat more plant-based foods or shift their diets away from meat-rich dishes. So keep your eyes out for that, which should be out in a few more weeks. Finally, if you have any more questions or you want to learn more about our work, you can visit our website at coolfood.org, or you can reach out to me at my email below. I think I will go ahead and hand it back to Max. I'm going to dive in a little more to our behavior change options.
Thank you, Clara. And yeah, gotta love tips that are impactful and come with an alliterative title. That's really good. I look forward to when that comes out, your new behavior change playbook. So just so you all know, we will pause for questions at the end. So be sure to, collect your thoughts, and anything that does come up, we will want to hear more about it. So let's just talk about some pro tips of some of these interventions that, make sense for restaurants that, as Clara mentioned, are high impact and implementable, right? Interventions that work for restaurants that aren't too big of a lift. So here are some tips. So first of all, when you're designing your recipes, really wanting to center taste, and in doing so, people want to eat their delicious food, and so if you find that people are expressing that the food is bland, and the dishes aren't driving sales, this is where you want to come back to taste and texture. So you're just making sure they have good experience. Thinking through the menu, each step of the menu, right? So appetizers, main dishes. This is a common thing when, especially vegans, go to restaurants and all they can eat is either a starter or there's a main but no dessert. That's a big holdup, and is an easy way to improve reviews from this community is to have dishes offerings at each step along the way. And then thinking through, what exciting new dishes can you create? What are your strengths and how can you veganize them? A change in recipe may not actually be that big, as you think, but it can go a long ways towards increasing accessibility. And remember, if you make a dish plant-based, it makes it available not just to vegans, but to vegetarians and everybody who has egg, dairy, and fish allergies, and people who have religious restrictions on the food they eat. So it really broadens access. So last year, several restaurants joined a version of this presentation around menu interventions. And as you can see, there's some really cool menus. And that's exactly what the folks from El Tamarindo did. was they thought through some very traditional dishes and they thought, how can we veganize them? So you can see they have birria tacos, but they're jackfruit. And they have sopes and esquites and even flan, and all of that's vegan, right? So you can see how when you get those creative juices flowing, you can make some really attractive plant-based dishes. Now, let's talk about menu design. So we talked about dish design. Now let's talk about menu design. One of those P's is placement that Clara referred to. And where are you going to put the plant-based dishes? Oftentimes you'll find them all the way at the bottom of the menu, which signals to diners that they are not a high priority. And so what you can do is put them at the top of the menu, put them in the corners of the menu, have place them with intentionality, and customers will notice that. And a lot of people like to make quick decisions based on the location where the dishes are featured. And so that is a no cost change to just where menus are placed that can go a long way towards, or where dishes are placed on the menu that can go a long ways towards improving the sustainability impact of your establishment. Secondly, for naming, you don't want to just call the dishes the vegan option. You wouldn't call your other dishes the beef option or the chicken option. And as such, you want to call it something delicious and focus on the tasty ingredients using adjectives, because you want to signal to your customers that you as an establishment care about these dishes and put thought into them. And if people see that the name is boring, they're going to see that it's something that isn't really, hasn't really been a priority, and they won't bother with it in ordering it. And then using descriptive words. So like a spicy Mexican bean wrap is going to sell a lot better than just a vegan wrap. And indeed, the World Resources Institute did a study that when a UK supermarket chain called Sainsbury's changed from the dish from meat-free sausage and mash, they changed the name to Cumberland spiced veggie sausage and mash, that sales increased dramatically, 76%. So, you can see how naming it, where you place it, and how you label it makes a big difference. Another thing in terms of labeling is, labels are very important for diners who have preferences around vegan or plant-based or allergies. And so, but also diners who are flexitarian, but who, when they see labels that are highlighted or call out section for vegan on the menu, it will be a turnoff for them. They will see it as something that's not for them. So you want to have kind of subtle labels, and we'll talk more about that. But here you can see folks from Teaism last year put together, this is how they updated their menu. And you can see the placement. They moved their plant-based items to the top of the menu, and they really leaned into those descriptive indicators, adjectives, really talking about what's in, rather than focusing what's not in the dish, focusing on what is on the dish. And you can see the pretty pictures they use to help present their foods. So make it really attractive. So, like I said, people want to make a popular choice, right? So you can use eye-catching call-outs to increase sustainability. Maybe putting a box around some of the top dishes that are plant-based with like a chef's recommendation or best-selling, something to star it or give an indicator that it's really cool. And, if you just put a box around it and call a dish vegan, like I said, that, that may signal there's a social identity attached to the dish that people don't aspire to. And so if they're non-vegans, they might therefore not even consider the dish in that box. So getting rid of that box and focusing on the exciting parts of the dish and having more subtle labels, maybe like a V next to the dish or a leaf to indicate that it's vegan, are nice ways to both accommodate your customers with food preferences and to make it attractive to all of your customer base. If you do have a vegan menu, don't hide it. Make sure that it's accessible to folks to see, because people make decisions based on what options and selections are available at your restaurant. And so, you may get a larger group, especially consider, for instance, if you had a party of 10, how folks may be inclined to just to come to a place that has more options for a larger group and that's more versatile. So, making sure that your diverse options are visible is a long way towards demonstrating your versatility to your customers. And then lastly, and this is a big thing, supporting your staff in customer readiness. Make sure that your staff know and are familiar with the plant-based options on the menu, that they can recommend which they like and what's good about them. Because the customers will ask the staff, and if they're not familiar, they're gonna have a hard time making those recommendations. So again, here's another menu that we have from last year's DC Veg Week. And, as you can see, they took the advice to put a plant-based item in the top and give it a special call out. And, as you can see, they wrote featured special in green font, and it called it the Sunrise Scramble Bowl, right? That's a lot more fun name than like tofu scramble. So, making it fun. And you can see they highlighted in green down below. This is in the best picture that I took myself. But they highlighted in green text down below another plant-based option, right? So this isn't a menu that necessarily has a lot of vegan selections, but they did a really good job of highlighting the ones that they do have to, give a nod and nudge towards sustainability. So, we can see that a lot of these preferences are reflected in the reviews. And going back to the reviews that I showed earlier on, you can see the first one, how this is probably feedback that the restaurant needs to go back and revisit that recommendation to focus on taste and texture. In the second review, you can see the person saying that the falafel dish was the only thing they could have, and there were really limited selections. So, making sure that you have different plant-based options for every category, whether it's appetizer, side, entree, or dessert. And then lastly, this one is actually a positive, that they really appreciated the staff readiness and how the staff were familiar with the ingredients. Now, on the positive side, these are some really positive reviews, and you can see things that are popping out. So like for this place that has a 100% vegan brunch, that stood out to the customer, and having that call out for a sustainable option. And keep in mind, none of these listed here are vegan restaurants, right? So they are omni restaurants, and this one has a vegan brunch. And so having that call out went a long way for this customer. And this customer also really liked that they had plant-based options for every step in the meal. And so, following that recommendation worked really well for this restaurant. In the second review, you can see that this place that serves wings and chicken parmesan and pizza and vegan versions of all of it, they did a lot in really envisioning how they can serve both their conventional items and their plant-based items that are very delicious, enticing for the audience. And then lastly, using descriptive words, having fun dish names. Here we're talking about eggplant falafel and the ravioli, and just finding ways to get your audience excited about what you're serving. So those are some of the interventions, and folks may want to take advantage of DC Veg Restaurant Week coming up this May to apply some of those interventions. And so that's going to be May 6th through 12th. Really excited. We have two wonderful co-chairs, one of whom being Bershan Shah, who is a wellness author. She's a two-time cancer survivor who used a plant-based diet as a key component to her wellness recovery, and she's a frequent commentator on several news programs. And then, of course, our homegrown Joseph J.V. Blair, who is the assistant coach for the Washington Wizards and a big advocate for the vegan world. Very fun. So DC Veg Week will be this May 6th through 12th. It's our third year of putting it on. And it's extremely flexible for restaurants, however they want to participate. It's whether it's offering a deal or discount on existing plant-based menu items or creating new specialty dishes for the week. It's a great chance to try all those menu items that you've been thinking about and see how it resonates with your customer base during DC Veg Week. So it's a fun time to do some experimenting and testing out and using new ways to appeal to your audience. And DC Veg Restaurant Week is totally free to participate. So I will follow up with, information about how to sign up and encourage everybody to sign up. The deadline is April 26th to register. And, you know, in past years, restaurants have had a great time just getting new traffic, getting, you know, recognized, featured in the media, having increased sales and new customers, first-time customers, and, you know, having an increase in volume. So, you know, these are some of the testimonials that we've heard from restaurants who participate in DC Veg Week. And we really hope that you will participate this year. And thank you so much for joining today's webinar.